Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT, and oh my goodness, what the hell is going on with Florida State? I cannot believe what I'm about to say, but FSU falls at home 28-13 to Boston College. And before we mention another word about FSU, let's give a huge round of applause to Boston College getting their first win under new head coach Bill O'Brien. A lot of y'all forget how good of a head coach Bill O'Brien is. Everybody thinks about his infamous run as the Houston Texans head coach when he had a little bit of success until he became the general manager and pretty much destroyed the team. But before he became the head coach of the Texans, he was the head coach of Penn State football. And a large reason why Penn State is in the position that they're in now, pretty much being a perennial college football playoff contender, is because of Bill O'Brien being able to keep that program afloat after the Jerry Sandusky disaster. So Bill O'Brien built the stairs so James Franklin can continue to climb and build up Penn State football to what it is today. And not too many people give Bill O'Brien his credit for where Penn State football is right now. And that shows you that this dude is a really good coach when it comes to building a good culture in the locker room. Boston College returns a lot of production this year from last year's team, which is really surprising considering the fact that Bill O'Brien accepted this job really late, so he couldn't utilize the first cycle of the transfer portal window, and a lot of their best players from last year still decided to remain on the team, follow through with the new coaching staff, learn a new playbook, and it paid off dividends with them getting this big time win on the road against Florida State. And I mean, if you're an FSU fan right now, I genuinely want to ask you, are you okay? Like, seriously, how are you holding up? Because if I was you, I wouldn't have enough courage to walk outside repping Florida State football anymore, because this was a complete and utter disaster tonight that we saw. I mean, DJU couldn't hit an open wide receiver to save his life. Before halftime, with 2 minutes left in the first half, he gets FSU into the red zone, right? And he overthrows two wide open wide receivers. It doesn't get any worse than that. And not only was he missing wide open wide receivers, but when he was able to hit guys when they were open, you had a lot of drops out there. So you can't put all of this loss on DJU just being flat out garbage, because the whole team played like garbage. Nobody on defense wanted to wrap up. The defensive line was getting pushed around by Boston College offensive line. I mean, FSU looks like a FCS team right now. The performance that they put on display tonight was absolutely embarrassment. I mean, did they even try? Because it didn't look like it. They got outgained on the ground by Boston College, 263 yards to only 21. I mean, it doesn't get any more one-sided than that. In the first quarter, FSU only had the ball for 56 seconds. Boston College engineered a 14-minute drive on their first possession of this game. It took up the whole entire first quarter. And you want to know something? I knew this game was not going to go well for Florida State when I first turned it on, and you couldn't even see how much time was left in the first quarter. They was talking about how they was having some technical difficulties with the clock. Like, out of everything that you should be able to have right, why is the clock an issue? Once I seen that, I knew Florida State was in trouble, man. And you got to have a serious conversation about DJ Uyunglele, because at this point, you got to bench this brother. He is holding back this team. And it's a tough conversation to have for the reason that you probably gave this dude a huge sum of money for his NIL package to incentivize him to transfer to Florida State. So how can you bench a dude that's getting paid so much money? It's kind of hard to do, but if you're Mike Norvell, you got to go ahead and do it, because you're just setting a bad precedence in the locker room by continuing to allow this travesty at quarterback to cost you games. You play Memphis next week. You got a great chance of losing that game too and falling to 0-3. We talking about how bad Florida could be this year. You might be just as bad as them. I mean, when you play Florida the last game of the season, it could be the game to decide who ends up getting their second win of the year. Not trying to be funny. I'm dead serious, man. This Florida State team looks like absolute garbage, man. They can't block nobody. They can't tackle nobody. They can't get after the quarterback. I mean, their secondary is garbage. I mean, everything that was good about Florida State last year is god-awful this year. I mean, if you're a Noles fan right now, you're praying for Jordan Travis to walk back through the door, man. I mean, the quarterback play that we've seen out of DJU these last two games has been god-awful. This may be some of the worst quarterback play that I've ever seen in my lifetime following Florida State football. I mean, I'm a Miami fan, and I got a little bit of sympathy for you Florida fans, for you Florida State fans right now, because this is just god ugly. I mean, at this point, they might as well just hand Miami the ACC championship. It's no point in even playing out the rest of the season, man, because Florida State season is over. Kiss your playoff hopes goodbye. You still got people talking about Florida State's playoff chances. Like, get playoffs out of your brain, man. Florida State ain't going to no damn playoffs. Not with no DJU at quarterback. They lost to Boston College. It gets no worse than this. You got people talking about okay, they lost to Georgia Tech. Is Boston College another good team that nobody knew about? Eventually, we got to stop. Florida State was overrated going into this year. And I hate bragging about it, but I did warn you guys about DJU not being trustworthy. He wasn't good at Clemson. He wasn't that good at Oregon State. He's somebody that looks good when you look at the stats, but that's why you got to watch the actual games. This is a rebuild season or rebuilding year for Florida State. You see, where people went wrong with Florida State is that they judged this team based off what they did last year and not based off the team that they had going into this year. They had obvious questions at several positions. Their pass rush was a huge question with them losing Brandon Fisk and Jared Verse to the NFL. I mean, their offensive line was pretty decent, but we knew that they had a major hole at receiver. You lost Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson and Jaheim Bell. Those were three NFL guys that were a crucial part to your passing attack last year. So when you lose this much production and you don't have elite level recruiting to be able to just simply reload like a school such as Alabama, Ohio State, or Georgia, you find yourself in seasons like this one where you're rebuilding. And for Florida State, there's a good chance that they don't even make it to a bowl game with how bad that they look. This team looks completely devoid at talent. Their most talented position is running back, and their offensive line can't even open up running lanes for these dudes to run with the football. And everybody knows the key to beating FSU is going all in on stopping the run and forcing DJ Uiagalelei to beat you with his arm. It's pretty simple. It was embarrassing to see Boston College just completely dominate and just do whatever they wanted to on the defensive line, the Florida State's offensive line. You also had a bunch of dumb penalties due to lack of discipline. You had one dude who was coming down on kickoff coverage. The play's over and he just pushes a guy flat on the ground. Like, what the hell is going on? I mean, Florida State just is in for a really rough season. If you're an FSU fan, you just need to go ahead and just run and hide for the rest of the year, because I don't know how you can call yourself a diehard Seminoles fan and say it with pride with the effort that this team put out on the field tonight. I mean, this was embarrassing. You got Florida FSU players, guys like Jalen Ramsey saying, what the hell is this FSU? I mean, this is embarrassing. This loss to me is worse than how bad you lost to Georgia in the Orange Bowl last year, because at least you tried. It didn't look like you were trying tonight. Guys aren't wrapping up. Like, what happened to the physicality? I remember watching FSU last year, and every time somebody on their defense came down to tackle somebody, you heard it, man. All you heard was pass thumping and the clicking. You don't hear no pass thumping this year when FSU plays defense. I mean, there's times when that pass rush just can't even push the pocket back, man. This was a really ugly and completely disgusting performance that we've seen out of Florida State this week. At least against Georgia Tech, you fought hard. You played to the final whistle. I mean, Boston College could have won this game by 3 touchdowns if they wanted to, because they got into scoring range. They just decided to show some sportsmanship and just say mercy for Florida State and just nil out the rest of the clock. But this was a way more one-sided game than what the box score may show you. The box score shows you 28-13, but this game really felt like it was 42-0. FSU didn't even look like they belonged on the same field as Boston College tonight. DJU, after his college career is over, we know where he's finna be working at. Straight McDonald's, man, because that's what he looked like. He looked like a McDonald's employee out there. You're giving this dude way too much money to suck this bad. And it's not a surprise, because many people inside that program knew what they were going to get out of DJU. It's just that Mike Norvell and his staff thought that they could develop this dude somewhat and unlock some of that hidden potential that his previous head coaches weren't able to do. But at this point, DJU is just a lost cause. It doesn't matter how much NIL money you gave this dude up front. I mean, you won't get a refund from that. You just got to go ahead and chalk up the L. It was a bad financial investment. And you need to go ahead and reevaluate how you scout quarterbacks in the future from the portal, because I was really shocked that they went after DJU. I really was. I expected for them to go after a guy like Will Howard, Cam Ward. When they got DJU, I knew they were going to be in for a rebuilding season, because that's what this is. Mike Norvell isn't a bad coach. It's just that this is a team that was not that good going into this season. You know, people keep asking, is Florida State really this bad? Yes. I mean, you lost to Georgia Tech and you lost at home to Boston College. I mean, that's embarrassing. Doak Campbell Stadium is a really tough place to get a win at. I actually been to an FSU game before, and it's a great environment. You ain't hear none of the, I ain't hear none of that. I ain't hear none of that. Throughout this game, I was really shocked at how quiet Doak Campbell Stadium was. Because normally you always hear that chant. They always got the chop going. But Boston College just shut Doak Campbell Stadium the hell up. I mean, at the end of the third quarter, you have fans leaving the game, and it still was a chance that Florida State could have came back. I mean, the only 2 dudes on offense that were doing something was, number 1, that wide receiver. You need to start him. That dude is an absolute stud. Every time he was in the game, he was making plays. He seemed like the only person that knew how to catch the damn football tonight. I mean, Malik Benson is really good when DJU can actually hit him in stride and doesn't overthrow him. You lost this game because of poor tackling, lack of physicality. FSU just looked soft tonight against Boston College, man. Boston College took these boys to Pound Town. What Sexy Red said? Pound Town. Just left Pound Town. Yeah. Boston College just took Florida State to Pound Town, man. You would have thought that you was watching 1980s, 1990s, early 2000 college football with the way that Boston College was running it all over Florida State. I mean, I was completely embarrassed for Florida State fans out there, because there was an FSU fan on X last week that said that if the Seminoles lost to Boston College tonight, he would eat a whole cup of poop. And I hope that he was joking about that, man, because I really don't want to see him do it. I really don't. Even though as a Miami fan, I would enjoy seeing him do it. But on human personal level, I don't want to see him eating no dog crap because he's the one who shouldn't be eating no dog crap. Mike Norvell and everybody in that locker room should be the one eating a whole pile of dog crap for how bad they looked tonight. I mean, it was embarrassing. You look at Mike Norvell on the sideline, this dude just looks dejected. He doesn't know what the hell to do, and I don't blame him. When you got a quarterback that's overthrowing wide receivers when they're 5 yards open downfield, what can you do? There's no coaching, no play calling that can fix that garbage, man. I mean, holy cow, I thought I was watching Iowa football tonight. I mean, they went up 14-0, and then they started making the effort to come back into the game. In the second half, they got a little bit of juice, but I mean, this was just a god-awful performance out of Florida State on both sides of the football. There are no positives. What's next for Florida State? What you mean what's next for Florida State, man? You playing Memphis next week. What's next is you better go to church Wednesday night. You better bring that Bible. You better open that thing up to your favorite Bible verse. And you better pray to God that he can help interject some energy into this football team right now, man. Because after these first 2 games, it's pretty easy to see what Florida State is at this point. They're a really bad team. And you got to wonder if the team already has quit on Mike Norvell. I don't think they're going to quit on Mike Norvell. Like, Mike Norvell is a really likable guy, and some FSU players that I've spoken to personally that have played under Mike Norvell over the last couple of years have nothing but respect for him. And he's a player's coach. The players do love him, but it's just at this point, man, it's not looking good down there in Tallahassee, Florida, bro. They need a reality check. I mean, I wonder if they could even blow out FAMU by 40 points if they were to play them today, because they look like the best team in Tallahassee right now. They're 2-0. FSU is 0-2. I mean, losing to Georgia Tech is one thing, but losing to Boston College at home is just downright unacceptable. And you want to know what I noticed about all these teams that Florida State has lost to? Georgia Tech, Boston College, what they both have in common is that they return a lot of production from last year's team. FSU doesn't have a lot of returning starters from last year because they've mostly built their program through the portal. And that's why building your team mostly through the portal is not a sustainable method of being able to maintain success on a year-to-year basis. Because when you lose a lot of those portal guys, you got to fall back on the guys that you recruited out of high school. And Florida State doesn't recruit at a good enough level to be able to just simply reload. They have to rebuild this year. I mean, this was a wake-up call for Mike Norvell and Florida State fans out there that you better buckle up, buddy. And you might want to just go ahead and hide in the corner of your room, hide all of your FSU gear. As a matter of fact, just put all your Florida State gear in the closet. Your season is over. Florida State has no shot at making it into the college football playoffs. They shouldn't even be ranked after this week. They shouldn't even have been ranked after they lost to Georgia Tech. I mean, at this point, if you still are trying to convince yourself that, Florida State can turn around, you're just being naive at this point. There is no turning this around. You know what Josh Pate says. You're not always what your record says you are, but you are what you show on the field. And what has FSU shown us on the field? They can't tackle. They can't stop the run. They can't get after the quarterback. I mean, when you don't have any talent on the defensive line, you've already lost at least 60 to 75% of your games, because football is still a game that is won and lost in the trenches. And if you can't stop the run, you're already at a disadvantage. I mean, Boston College had a drive in the first quarter when they just had the possession of the football for 14 minutes. The whole entire first quarter, they had the ball. FSU only had it for 56 seconds, man. Like, this is unacceptable for a school like Florida State that has the reputation and the prestige that they have. And they were crying about wanting to get out of the ACC. They feel like they're bigger than the ACC. To me, Florida State belongs in the ACC, the worst conference in college football. When you lose to Boston College in this fashion, getting outgained 263 yards to 21, you don't deserve to go to another conference. You don't deserve to play in the SEC. You don't deserve to play in the Big Ten. You deserve to be right where you are, along with Clemson and the Atlantic Coastal Conference. The ACC commissioner might as well go ahead and just give the ACC title already to Miami. Because this is the ACC's only hope at getting a team into the college football playoffs. Florida State, even if they turn their season around, there's still a good chance that they miss out because you're already down 0-2 in conference play. I mean, there's not a single game at Florida State's schedule right now that I can look at and say, oh, yeah, it's a guaranteed win. I mean, you could lose to Memphis, SMU. You're definitely losing to Miami. I mean, wow. I've witnessed a couple of bad years of FSU football, but I've never seen a season this bad, ever. I mean, I'm 22 years old. I've been watching college football for 12 years. And the worst season I probably remember was the year when they had Jimbo Fisher before he left for Texas A&M, and he had James Blackman at quarterback. Now, the Willie Taggart years were pretty bad also. But I mean, this loss to Boston College tonight is worse than any loss Willie Taggart ever had. And that's saying something. I mean, they're still paying Willie to this day from his buyout. Florida State football is a joke, and they should be embarrassed for how they played tonight against Boston College. A team that has the amount of tradition and pageantry that Florida State has should never be okay with suffering a loss this embarrassing at home to a school like Boston College. Like, kudos to Boston College. This was a great game by them. But the fact that Florida State lost by 2 possessions to them is just embarrassing. Like, if you're a Florida State fan, just go ahead, deactivate all your social media accounts. Don't rep your team anymore. But because you just look like a complete fool doing so. Well, what is there to rep? You're going to rep a team that had this poor of a performance against Boston College? Huh? I mean, this is going to be a very long season for you Florida State Seminole fans out there. But I appreciate you guys for listening to this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. If you enjoyed, do us a favor, give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Share this pod with your friends, family members, and acquaintances. If you have a question or topic that you would like us to discuss or answer on a future episode, you can send them in the DMs. At JT Sports _ is my Instagram. At JT Sports _ is where you can find me on X. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys shortly with another episode.